So I recently made a video called Why I Have 24 Bank Accounts, and we got a lot of feedback from you, the viewer. Some of you were confused, why is having different bank accounts important? Why not just get one? Why not just get a fintech? So in this video, I want to explain more about my principles on why bank account diversification is so important. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. Now, what I understand about bank account diversification is obviously most of you don't want and will never have 24 different bank accounts. Actually, the number's higher now because I've been a little busy. But here's why having different bank accounts is important. One thing I tell people when I'm working with them personally is you want to set up your bank accounts to go where you're treated best, in that no one bank account is going to serve all of your needs. See, where you're from, in my case from the United States, you'd have one account at the local bank, and that same bank might convince you to take out your mortgage or your car loan or whatever with them. And that might be your financial partner, okay? And a lot of people do that. But that bank really isn't perfect at everything. But once you go offshore, that's going to be magnified, okay? So there are some banks that are better as transactional accounts. They like having money coming in from, let's say, a salary that you pay yourself from your company or a salary that you get for freelancing, and then that money goes out, you use your debit card, etc. Other accounts are better for wealth storage. Others are better for investments. For example, I've got a great Singapore bank account. I was down the street here, took out 500 euros. I got whacked for 24 euros in various fees. And so that's not the kind of card. Well, it's an ultra stable bank, amazing bank, great customer service. I love my banker there. He helps me with everything I need. It's not a card that I want to use to go and travel around. So I use more of a transactional bank for that. And so one thing I tell people is it's nice to have a couple of different banks that each serve different parts of your needs, okay? Don't rely on just one bank and try and shoehorn it into giving you everything that you want. So that's not going to be 24 banks, but it might be 2 or 3. And if you're from the United States, you might keep one of your US banks as well. Now, why so many? Well, one thing that's important in my mind is that you always have redundancies, okay? It's always interesting when people come to me who've been in the military because they've been trained to have a second backup plan, a third backup plan. There are fail-safes that they're used to. And so those guys understand the idea of redundancies, that obviously we don't want to open accounts at banks that are closing. I can't say I've ever recommended or opened an account at a bank that was shut down. That's more the province of these banks on these tiny islands where some of those do get shut down from time to time. But what you might find, depending on which bank you go to, is a bank that says at some point, you know what, we don't want non-residents anymore. Or you know what, we're raising the minimum requirements. Or you know what, we don't want someone who doesn't have a tax home. There's a possibility, although I think there's a way to greatly reduce the possibility, there's a possibility that one of the banks in your mix might no longer want you. This is the price of going where you're treated best, is knowing that your plan is never going to be quite perfect, okay? There's always going to be that one thing that might need a little bit of attention 5 years from now, okay? Now, the ROI is there to justify doing this, but you have to understand, if you're going offshore, you've got to keep a little bit closer eye on your finances than you would if you just kept all of your money at Chase in the United States or Commonwealth Bank. And so I think it's important to make sure, particularly for a business, if you've got an offshore company, and even more particularly if you're a US citizen, it's important to have redundancies to where not only do you want to be left without you don't want to be left without a personal bank account, but if you have a business bank account, you don't want to be forced to put that money in your own name because you have nowhere else to move it, okay? And I've seen far too many cases of people who had one bank account where the bank shut them down, namely because the bank no longer trusted their offshore company's jurisdiction. They were in Belize or something, and the Singapore bank said, we're done with Belize. And they were scrambling, and some of them have had some real problems, and both operational and tax problems. So I always want redundancies, okay? Now here's the other thing that's a bit more optimistic. One of the things that we've talked about here before is the idea of tunnels, okay? I understand that a lot of people who get started going offshore, they don't just want to go and move, $1 million into one bank, okay? Even if you have $1 million, I get it, you probably want to dip your toe in a little bit, and everyone's definition of toe dipping is a little bit different. But the idea of tunnels is you set up several different options, all of which have a lower price of entry that you're comfortable with. You fund that lower price of entry, and then you build up from there. So for example, I had a bank account in Montenegro. I needed 3,000 euros and change to become a resident, but later I started bumping that bank account balance up. I said, it's not worth it for me to have any less than 20 grand in a bank account, for example. So let me bump that up because I'm comfortable. I've been to the bank, I know the girl who works there, the online banking works, the ATM card works. I dipped my toe in, I got comfortable with it, I learned how each and every one of my banks works, and the ones that sucked I just got rid of. But the rest I kept around, and I'm just slowly bumping them up. And so having the ability to do that, to me, is important. But in order to do that, you probably want to have a couple of them. Now, obviously, I have 24, and again, now more, accounts because I'm out testing it so that when you come to me, I say, yeah, these ones suck. I had a terrible HSBC, never, right? But you still want a couple of accounts. Here's the other reason, okay? The offshore world is increasingly getting more complicated, whether it's banking, whether it's residence. So many things, every year the requirements go up. Countries close programs. Banks close off to taking new customers. I've still got a bank account in Singapore I opened with less than $1,000 a lot of years ago. You cannot get that account anymore if you aren't a resident of Singapore. Okay? But the bank is happy with me. I'm still there. They didn't close my account. They just said, you know what, no new accounts. Okay? And so my philosophy, the second part of the tunnels equation, having tunnels is about saying, let me just get my toe in over here, and over here, and over here. And you know what? Then I'll have the option. Okay? Giovanna, who works doing R&D for us, recently has been traveling all over Europe, meeting with different bankers and building our spreadsheet of 800 plus banks. Because you know what? Some people want an EU bank account to be able to receive money from the EU or use the IBAN system, or they want to make certain EU investments, or they want to get a fintech product or whatever that requires an EU bank account. And so you know what? If you think that you might need an EU bank account for that reason, it might be wise to go over and put 1,000 euros over here to have a tunnel, knowing that in Romania, for example, you could use people to get 10 bank accounts. Now you can't get any, but there are some countries where you used to be able to get 10, and now there's only one bank that will take you. And who knows if in a year, maybe that one bank will also shut down to new accounts for non-residents also. So if I can get that account now, obviously I'm going to be totally truthful with the bank. I'm not ever deceiving the banks. I'm just saying, here's my situation. Will you accept me now? Yes. Oftentimes, if the bank is aware of your situation, they're not going to kick you out of the bank later. They'll just stop taking similar people, okay? And so I think that everyone who's going offshore, investing, doing business, etc., might want to have access to different types of accounts as a proactive measure, not only to get comfortable and to keep funding the accounts more and more, but just as a proactive measure. One other thing we've talked about here is, if I want to buy real estate in Egypt, for example, I'm not sending that money from my U.S. bank account. The U.S. banker is gonna he's gonna be really freaked out, right? I probably want to do it from Singapore. I would want a bank account if my goal was to invest in Middle East, North Africa. I would want a bank account in, let's say, the UAE, okay, where it's relatively stable compared to an Egyptian bank account. But they're going to understand investing in Egypt, and they're not going to freak out, okay? Again, I'm being totally upfront about what I'm doing, but that's just an idea, okay? If you wanted to invest in Southeast Asia, a lot of banks in the US are freaked out by Malaysia. Singapore, it's like second nature to them. Of course people send money to Malaysia, okay? And so having that Singapore account might be a great tunnel if you think in the future you're going to invest in Malaysia and you want to do so in an operationally efficient way. Again, I'm not telling you to go and set up dozens of bank accounts, but what I want you to consider is the idea of, number one, no one bank account is going to serve all of your needs. The same way no one country is going to serve all of your needs. Number two, tunnels are a great way to dip your toe in and to get comfortable as you grow. And number three, you can use those tunnels to also make sure that you have access to low cost, straightforward options that exist today, but probably won't exist tomorrow. Make sure you get your foot in the door before they'll no longer let you. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.